Today we will talk about something very interesting, and that something very interesting has to do something with physics. You see, if you have to bear weight on the single limb, then the pelvis tilts like this. This is the head, this is the neck. Here you have the knee and the leg with slight degree of valgus. And here you have an area of the foot. So what happens is that the spine also tilts like this, and the line of gravity passes through the head straight down and has to be within the area of the feet. The muscle that maintains this tilt is the gluteus medius, acting from the trochanter and ensuring that the iliac crest is down. It's not such a powerful muscle that can lift up the entire body. So it is helped by the gastrocnemius of the opposite side, which contracts, causes flexion, and sort of increases the length of this side of the limb so that this side rides up. But when this limb is swinging forward in the swing phase, because now the weight is on this, then this gastrocnemius is not helping. Then it's the gluteus medius that is maintaining the iliac crest down. Now, one of the very important things that maintains this limb in a straight position and prevents buckling of the knee is something which is called as locking. What is a lock? Supposing this is the lock, it has got a lever, and this lever moves like this so that this goes into the slot. So this is the primary movement. A lock is a device which has got a primary movement. And then there is this key, and this key turns, and a lever moves into the slot. So there is a secondary movement. And the secondary movement prevents reversal of the primary movement. So if you have to reverse the primary movement, then you will have to reverse the secondary movement first. Now let's see what's happening here. Here, this is the head and the neck, this is the trochanter. Here is your femoral condyle, the lesser trochanter, and here is the tibia. So we've made up the valgus because femur is directed inwards, the tibia is directed exactly downwards. So now, as the femur extends fully over the tibia, which is aligned and is weight bearing at this point, as the femur extends fully, by the tie rope action of the anterior cruciate ligament becomes tight, and by this the lateral femoral condyle keeps moving forward, whereas the medial femoral condyle stops. So the femur rotates inwards, internally rotates in relation to the tibia. As soon as that happens, this is the ball and this is the socket. the axis of the ball, instead of being in the flexion extension, becomes internally rotated. So now the primary movement is extension, the secondary movement is rotation, internal rotation of the femoral condyle over the tibia by the tie rope action of the ACL, and unless and until this axis returns to its original position, there can be no flexion. So this internal rotation prevents reversal of extension. And if the knee has to flex, what will happen? There is a muscle that arises from the femoral condyle, goes behind and gets attached to the soleal line of the tibia like this. Now, if this muscle acts, so if we make the lateral femoral condyle, the medial femoral condyle from top, and the axis is internally rotated, and underneath is the surface of the tibia, and here is the tibial tuberosity that you see. Is looking at it from above, and this muscle originating from the lateral femoral condyle, piercing the capsule here by the arcuate ligament and getting inserted onto the posterior surface of tibia here, will derotate the femur, derotate the internal rotation, and will restore the axis of the femur, so that now the femur can flex. So this is the locking and unlocking of knee. What is the advantage of locking? The advantage of locking is that if you see the femur from in front, here is the tibia, here is the patella, here is the quadriceps muscle, here is the ligamentum patelli. The advantage of locking is that even when there is weight on this, this will not buckle. This will not buckle even if the quadriceps is not contracted. So you don't require active power to keep the knee extended in the weight bearing phase of the limb. You do not require active quadriceps power to keep knee extended and prevent buckling, because if it buckles, then the person will fall in the weight bearing phase. So it prevents buckling. So you must have seen that one of the ways they use in wrestling is that they push the knee from behind and the person falls. So they use this technique to buckle the knee by pushing this knee forward in wrestling. So this is how the knee does depend on the quadriceps power and the ACL, tie rope action of ACL to lock. But then the quadriceps can relax and the knee will maintain its position till the popliteus derotates it. Till the popliteus derotates it, the axis, flexion extension axis is restored and the knee can flex again. So this is the mechanism of normal locking. Now I am going to explain to you another very interesting concept. This is the head, this is the neck. You are seeing from the side. This is the femur, and you are seeing it from the side. Here is the tibia, the medial malleolus, and here you can see the talus. And here you can see the calcaneum and the rest of the foot. So here we are seeing the situation when the knee has become buckle prone. It has become buckle prone because either the quadriceps is not sufficiently powerful, or the ligament. So the quadriceps is not sufficiently powerful. So I'll draw two other muscles, the gastrocnemius and the gluteus maximus. So this is bearing weight here, and this is bearing weight here, and this is the line of gravity. This is how the weight is being transmitted on this line. We'll make it colored so that you can remember. So this is the line of gravity from center of head to the base of the metacarp. Now, if the axis of the knee is behind this line, it is here, then this gravity will extend the knee, not flex it. So if the quadriceps has lost its power and there is a chance that the knee will buckle in weight bearing, then you can do one of the three things. Push the head forwards, and that is by the action of the gluteus maximus. Shift the weight to the forward part of foot by causing plantar flexion by action of gastrocnemius. This contracts, this goes into plantar flexion. Instead of weight here, the weight starts coming here. So the second mechanism is gastrocnemius power, which causes plantar flexion, weight shifts forward. Weight in foot shifts forward. And the other is that if you produce genu recurvatum, supposing this becomes like this, hyperextended, then this line will automatically move backwards. So the third way is genu recurvate. So either you push the axis backwards or you push the line of gravity forwards by the action of the gluteus maximus and the gastrocnemius. And if you can't do any of this, we'll make this foot, the leg, the thigh and the bottoms. And if you tilt the trunk forward, here is the upper limb, here is your neck, and here is your face. If you push this forward, the trunk, bend the trunk forward, the line will go forward. Weight will go forward. And you can use this hand to push the knee backwards. Now this forward bending in the stance phase of the lower limb with the hand pushing the knee backwards is called as quadriceps gait. Now if you want to restore active power, the first thing you should ensure is that there is full passive extension of knee, and then you can transfer the hamstrings into the quadriceps. So this is locking, unlocking, and how normally the loss of power of quadriceps is compensated by gastrocnemius power, by gluteus maximus power, and by genu recurvatum. And what is quadriceps gait? How does it help? And finally, what do you do to restore power of quadriceps? Thank you.